another Tuesday, another Dev Diary. Let's jump right into this. Alternate History Japan. See if it's any good. Here we are with the Imperial Way. This is the February 26th incident. This is where the big decision has to be made. Are we going to go historical or one of three varieties of ahistorical? So let's see what those end up being. So the top option is, I believe, the historical path. Second option is Kodoha. I always thought that said Kohoda, but it's Kodoha. And that is the first of the alt history branches, and I am curious. So it shares the foreign policy with the historical path, so no deviation, well, probably some, but minimal deviation there. And it also allows for a couple of fun things. Let's see, what do we have here? Ooh, you can make good friends with Poland, so are we gonna be shoguns then? Are we? Will we? Who knows? Enemy of our enemy, I guess, buddy up to Germany, and Sakokuron, isolationist, create faction of the Japanese sphere. Bit odd that you would create a new faction, if you're going to go isolationist, but all right, you go off, Queen. I guess you do you. Anyway, and the Kodoha faction is also the only one that can deal with the Kwantung army in any meaningful sense, meaning if you make your way down to this focus and subdue the Kwantung army, you are taking off the timer for the Chinese war. So you can then decide whether or not you're going to go to war with China and when, instead of having to deal with the Kwantung's army, their unpredictability, their independence. So that's pretty cool. And there are several different leaders and several different ideologies you could end up being as the Kodoha faction. Go fascist, you can go non-aligned. The fascist options seem to be in this case, Emperor Yasuhito, as well as Sadao Araki. And then the the non-aligned paths involve Hirohito and Jinzaburo Masaki. Feels like it's just a flavor difference, no real giant mechanical changes. But I absolutely do want to empower the Emperor. Yes, the Showa Emperor will be restored. Glorious. I just wish it's not the kind of mustache that, not a commanding mustache. His mustache game's not really there. But he has more going for him than Yasuhito, so I know who I want. And these guys do apparently have a pro-rural economic approach. That's great. Industry wins wars, farmers don't, by and large. So, supremacy of will, a big thing with the Japanese army. But in game sense, this is probably fine. These modifiers are pretty significant, and 5% reduced research speed isn't the biggest deal. But you can have all the will in the world. Your rifle rounds not stopping the endless waves of American tanks, boys. Denno Heika Banzai, very cool. Guess we're doing Banzai charges then. Revitalize the rural areas, so you're basically gonna build up areas outside the big cities. Basically some economic modifiers. They can dress it up any way they like. State socialism. Okay, just construction speed, I guess. It's nice. You're gonna need an economic boost, I guess. And then we get to the fun parts of that tree. The path ultimately culminates in propagandizing the Japanese mythological founding tales. The footsteps of Jimmu, the legendary founder of Japan, where you get pretty significant bonuses for 180 days, but those are pretty significant. And you get the Imperial Way, offensive war stabilizing. And you get the Imperial Way, which grants you, it's a pretty good stability modifier. And then what I really like, the Jeweled Spear has struck. Basically, you pick a country or a region in Asia, you get war goals. Now go conquer that, and then you can get the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. It really incentivizes you to go hard and go fast. Not only that, it can be combined with Sunojoi if you claim territory and conquer it successfully within the time frame. This thing keeps going. It renews again and again. Well, in this case, if you capture the capital, but that's a pretty significant bonus. And it's different from the modifiers we usually see. Either it's like a flat out plus 10% attack or 10% attack on core territory. Now, core territory buffs for Japan are next to useless because if the enemy's gotten onto the home islands, you have troubles that such a modifier is not going to solve. But this is for claimed territory. This is specifically a bonus for you to go on the offensive and go there, attack there, and defend there, I guess. So that is cool. I think they could do more with this. This really makes you choose where you launch your offensives, what you're going to claim, and how you're going to get there. And I really like that. I really like that. And then some more propaganda. Always love ourselves some propaganda-based war support-based ability. Always good. But usually, if this is at the end of a focus tree, by that time, the little bit of extra stability and war support aren't going to be doing much. Can't see what all the rest of it's going to offer. But this feels like it is basically more or less the historical path with a slightly different flavor to it. It's not necessarily a bad flavor, different. Turn towards democracy. In this one, we pick bottom option. Basically say, you know what? Fuck the military. We're done with it. We're going to reestablish civilian control. And this is going to be a challenge for Japan because no army is ever going to give up just like that because the minister said, no, bad boys. These bad boys have all the guns, so it's going to be tough. Naturally, the bad boys with the gun then shoot your prime minister, which is, yeah, it's not great. Usually not great. And then it all starts spiraling, and you basically put yourself on a path where things slide towards what we all know and love, another civil war between democracy on one end and the army on the other. And you're gonna have to go through your focus tree, get the right focus, make the right decisions to control territory, to control portions of the army, portions of the navy, get loyal generals on your side, get the right guys in the right place at the right time to contain the mess. And part of getting the right people in the right place apparently is just kissing up to the Yakuza. And pacifists. Yeah, that's what we need to win a civil war, pacifists. But it does allow you to see you can go gather support in many different places. Seeking Yakuza support gets you a general on side. A larger portion of the Imperial Army will be swayed on your side. If you get the royal pacifists, more of the royal family will be on your side. So the split's not going to be entirely, the emperor sides with the army, and that's that, and you're up against the wall. No, there are different outcomes, and this is just steering it more and more towards your favor. I think one of the good ones here is sway the Navy moderates, keeping you a larger share of the Imperial Navy. Japan being an island means if you have naval options, you could end the Civil War in a shorter time because you could naval invade around it. Japan is fairly narrow, and pushing the front line's not always the easiest thing, but if you can naval invade, you can change everything. And get yourself 8 police divisions into Civil War occurs if you expand the metropolitan police departments. Yeah, I don't know what kind of divisions they are, but usually cops not the best choice in a war. But hey, units in the field and all. That's pretty nice. And then eventually, it culminates in the focus where you revoke the peace preservation law. This is basically a law put in by the military to ensure that they have the final say on almost anything, and they retain very large portion of control on the government. And this is the government saying, no, we run things now. Obviously, the army will disagree, and things start. You get the siege of Osaka Castle, and this is where the Civil War starts. The army garrison at their headquarters in Osaka Castle opened fire at the government loyal garrisons stationed outside the park. Nice. Love to see it. And one thing that is interesting here is many of our colonies will likely see this as their opportunity to leave the empire. So I'm going to assume this is where Manchukuo and Manchuria basically dip out and say, peace. We'll do our own thing. And then if you make it through, there are very different options here, allowing you to restructure the army and the military to be more controlled by people with pens instead of guns. So this is where you can then do your build-up with many different options. Down here, you have a selection of 5 different premiers to choose from. So nice. I have no idea. I am personally not versed in Japanese history or Japanese political culture or any of that stuff. I know nothing about these guys, but you get options, and I like having options. It feels like it's probably going to be like aggressive democratic and vaguely peaceful democratic. You know, usually that's the kind of options they give you. I don't know enough about this. The dev diary is not clear enough on just what side does what, but it looks like if I'm going to judge by icons, Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, I guess that's more conservative on the right side. The left side, promote labor unions, like social democratic, I guess. And then it all goes down here. Crush the internal factions, always what you want to do. And the Democrats have two main goals: rapidly modernize Japan and bring it out of the economic slump it finds itself in. Okay, so we're gonna have to fix the economy, modernize the country, and build civilian nuclear reactors. I like that. I also like doubling the income. Hey, you can even give women the vote. Wow. So it looks like there's going to be war goals on the left, industry on the right, and judging by the icons, let's see here. Finish the fight, fairly straightforward. You take out Manchuria, where the Kwantung army is most likely still in charge. Safeguard the Shanghai settlement probably means going to war with Chiang Kai-shek. Closer ties with the USA and ally the Philippines. This is you being a good boy. Strike the old rival, probably going up against the Soviets, which makes sense, you know, does make sense. Japan's situation might have changed somewhat, but your enemies haven't really. And then free colonized Asian countries. I'm going to check what this says later on in the dev diary, but I think this is an option for you either to get war goals on the colonizers or like send out an event saying, give me the country. Or free the country, whatever, because a bit like the African Union can do. We'll see. Ooh, rekindle the old alliance. You can join the allies. Pretty cool. West Pacific Treaty Organization. You can make your own faction. Also pretty cool. It has decisions to invite non-aligned democratic Asian and Oceanic nations to our country. There's not a lot of countries there, though. Like, the ones there are puppets who can't do this. So what's the point? The Philippines are a puppet. Siam, maybe if they're non-aligned, okay. Australia's a puppet, they can't do this. New Zealand can't, they're a puppet. Dutch East Indies are a puppet. Everything there is either controlled by a European power directly, or it's a puppet of one. So what use is this? There's like one country that can join this. And that's Siam. I don't see any value in the West Pacific Treaty Organization. I'll be honest. Income doubling plan is like an economic bonus, but it's not really that big. Like, research bonus is cool, but it's for electronics. Oh no, it's electronics and industry. So this might be very nice. Political advisors, not bad. And Shinkansen project is the high-speed train, I believe. I can see this being maybe good. We'll have to see. You know, I have to get our hands on it to really have an idea. And then the war goals, what we all know and love. War in China. Yep. And then free colonized Asian countries. Oh, decisions to demand overlordship of Asian nations that are subject of non-Asian nations. So send a demand to the UK to hand over Malaysia and stuff like that. Okay. It's going to depend on if you as the player can influence this, and there are ways to first, you can see what influences it without having to dive into the files, and two, that influence is meaningful and it's not just RNG or just basically 99% chance to say no. So we're gonna have to see that, but it's a nice pitch that you could free your fellow Asian brothers without having to fight a world war over it. Okay. Guardian of the Pacific, and this is basically asking Japan... No, sorry, it's Japan asking the UK for control of the Asian colonies. But doesn't that overlap with free colonized Asian countries? It feels like that overlaps. Because the UK holds most of those lands. Either way, I guess it gives you options. We'll have to see if it's any good. Oh, I do like this one though. The Greater East Asian Federation. So it's a different take on the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere, where you basically allow this essentially allows you to integrate Asian states that are under your control. It turns you into an Asian supernation. You can integrate your subjects and annex your puppets that way. I like that. And then the third option. the worst one. Operation Unthinkable. No, the unthinkable option is communism. And it starts with, that's one hell of a tree, actually. It starts with treason. You secretly rebuild the Japanese Communist Party once you start on the democratic path. So there is no specific event turning you communist. So you have the three events, historical, Kodoha, ahistorical, democratic, ahistorical. And this is a sub-branch of democratic ahistorical, where as part of your great build-up to build a coalition to resist the military, you reach out to the defeated but not destroyed Communist Party of Japan. You basically, if we're gonna role play this a little bit, you're giving them money, you're funneling guns and equipment to them, you're allowing them to operate in the shadows, thinking they're gonna back us up in that upcoming civil war, and then we'll hash it out once we've defeated the military. Communists being communists, that never pans out, and this essentially sets you up for a three-way civil war. This whole tree is going to set you up to be the third horse in the race, basically. So, a lot of explanation here. I recommend you read this yourself. It's quite extensive. So basically, they're gonna start building their support, underground resistance, mountain villages, the Manchu exile. So, I believe several communist members, agitators were exiled to Manchuria, trying to build up something there that never really panned out. You can sway some disillusioned young officers, getting you a bigger chunk of the Imperial Army. And then as you go down, you eventually have a civil war. When the civil war fires, the communists will not actually support the president or the premier as he had thought, but seized the opportunity to begin the resolution, sparking a three-sided civil war. Don't we all love those? And then you have to use every page in the anarchist cookbook to deal with your enemies. All right, we'll see how difficult that war actually is. And once you've won, it's time to solidify the party's rule, obviously. A red sun rises for a new era. I do love the icons here. So there are two factions. The lecture group. So left side is Marxist-Leninist. Right side is leaning more towards Maoist, I'd say. The emphasis on the farmers. Oh, they do me the pleasure of laying it out here for me. So the left side lecture group is Leninist-Stalinist, and they will pursue a centralized approach, building up the idea of a one-party state and then spread the revolution to Asia by force. Okay. Invest, build more, do better. Ooh, modern Ashigaru. Yes. Anyone who's played Total War Shogun 2 knows the power of the Yari Ashigaru. The memes we can be had with those boys. Anyway, and then the other faction, the Labor Farmer faction, is more of a big tent party, trying to gather support from all socialist elements, so not just the communists, but bring in the social democrats and having a big old party, trying to do right by everyone, focusing on rural reconstruction and development. I guess they're more peaceful, and I just said that, and the first thing I see here is war communism. That's a nice buff, though. It's going to cost you a lot of stability, but that is a nice economy law. War communism. Well, I am actually interested because the current iteration of communist Japan is just really bad, and this is interesting. It feels fleshed out with actual options here. So, okay. Both of those paths have a sub-branch relating to restructuring society, so you're going to have to figure out what we're gonna do with the imperial family. Yes, that's a pretty big question for a nation like Japan that has been ruled by a deified emperor for 1,000 years or more. It does look like there's a lot of bonuses to be had here, a lot of national spirits. This country could be juiced to the gills, honestly. And then of course, you're gonna need all those bonuses to bring the revolution to the other peoples of Asia. We will end feudalism and imperialist rule, and depending on what way we go, there are different options. But I see a lot of war goals. War goals against Manchuria, war goals against the Chinese, against Mongolia, Soviets, the capitalists, that would be America, and then a free Asia Pacific. And on the other side, that's war goals for everyone. Important to note that none of the Japanese communist factions really liked the Soviet Union at the time, and both wished to act as counterweights. So you're gonna fight the Soviets no matter what. That's always good in my book. Alright, the lecture group, so left side, will try to unify East Asia under one banner by force, attempting to become a Soviet Union of sorts to stand up against the USSR and the Commonwealth and USA. So you're going to try to Voltron all the Asian peoples into one big mega country. Or mega faction. Yeah, you create a faction, get some nice bonuses here. Unlocks decisions to integrate Asian states under your control. Okay, so much like the Democratic faction, this also allows you to gobble up your puppets, I believe. And then a Red Dawn over Asia just gives you massive, well, fairly massive buffs, provided you actually get control of several things, like Shanghai controlled by the Japanese People's Republic, or they're your ally. I see more stuff down there, but I can't read all of it. And the labor farmers, they want to establish puppet governments throughout the Comintern, adopting a similar playstyle of the East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere, using slightly more subversive tactics. Okay, so what we just saw in the left side is just straight up conquest, puppet, integrate, become one big strong nation as a counterbalance. And this is more start a faction and then do insipid things to stir the pot. It looks like here you can start a civil war in Korea where the communist side becomes your puppet and then you back them up. Spreading the revolution south here seems to give people events, depending on things, whether or not Siam would take that or not, the deal you offer. Maybe they could also offer the same deal to like Australia, the Philippines, etc. Not sure if this just gives you a war goal, because it also says an event. And then a free Asia Pacific gives you pretty sweet bonuses. And a whole lot. Feast your eyes, boys, because that is a whole lot of people, none of whom I recognize, but there's a whole lot of people here who are going to be available to Japan in one way or another. And damn. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love these new 3D models. And I do think the rice fields be speaking Vietnamese. Now look at that. It's a very nice hat. Very nice coat. Anyway, that has been Japan. I'm quite excited for this. I'm not sure how to feel about all of the paths, but I can already tell there's going to be stuff in there I will like, which already has me hyped. I have to counterbalance by saying there's also stuff in there that I don't really like just yet. But as with all things, we won't know until it's here, until we get our hands on it. I remain cautiously optimistic. If you guys are as well or not, let me know down in the comments. And if you're interested in picking this up, check the link down below or use code BITTERSTEEL on screen. And you can pick up the game from Paradox's store. It's the same price as Steam. You get a Steam key. You can play the game on Steam. The only difference is I get 12% of the revenue and the Belgian government can take more of my money. Lord knows we need it. Anyway, this has been me. I'll see you next one. Goodbye.